Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmanians could end up paying for the entire York Park redevelopment, despite a grandstanding funding announcement by the Prime Minister last month. There are fears of a similar situation for Macquarie Point, with the Treasurer failing to lock in a guarantee the funds won't come from a pool of GST money already touted for the state.
Renovations at York Park are being made a reality with federal funds.
I secured the deal, I got the $305 million and I won't back down from it.
But the money could have been headed for our coffers anyway. Tasmania's share of the GST revenue is cut when projects here get federal funding. There are exemptions, but it's been revealed Tasmania didn't ask for one.
It became evident that York Park funding would not be exempt, as it would be treated in a similar way to federal funding for the North Queensland Stadium, the Adelaide Oval redevelopment and the SCG redevelopment.
A formal request for the Mac Point money has been made, but the Treasurer did so on the afternoon of May 9, 11 days after the funds were awarded and hours after being grilled about it in question time.
Very clearly, discussions have been had between the Premier and the Prime Minister well before any issues were raised in this House.
Labor claims that amounts to misleading.
It is a demonstration of their incompetence.
A Greens motion to pull funding from the budget failed today.
Legal advice that's been provided and shared publicly illustrates that any amendments to the budget are effectively blocking supply.
They're tacitly supporting the expenditure of public funds on a new stadium.
The minor party tabling their alternative budget, cutting racing subsidies and raising mining and resource royalties to pay for more public services, including health staff and child safety officers.
It provides a pathway to pay parity, transitioning essential public service awards to be equal to their mainland counterparts.
Also calling for the Tasmanian World Wilderness Heritage Area to be made a dark sky sanctuary. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
The target waiting time for Tasmanian priority applicants to be housed has doubled. David O'Byrne has lashed the rise from 36 weeks to 75, saying it shows a government out of its depth.
That's their goal. That's their high watermark. That's how they want to be measured. So people who are in the most need will have to wait 75 weeks to get access to housing. That's a disgrace.
Housing Minister Guy Barnett didn't explain why in Parliament, instead saying the government was getting on with the job. Tasmania's first eating disorder clinic has been earmarked in a grand proposal for a health and wellbeing precinct in the state's capital. St John's Park will be home to the public services in a mission to expand care beyond the Royal Hobart Hospital.
Big plans for an even bigger project. The Premier has his eyes set on another home for vital services.
A very exciting 20-year plan where we can have bring together key services of mental health, rehabilitation.
Standing alongside our top health bosses, an ambitious draft master plan for the new St John's Park complex has been unveiled and is open for public scrutiny.
We have a lot of work to do to plan out what are the models of care that will be provided in the mental health precinct here at St John's Park.
A new Royal Hobart Hospital campus will form part of the precinct to expand the capability of mental health and subacute care, meaning the state government's initial pitch to accommodate an expansion at the repatriation centre has been abandoned.
It allows us to actually progressively build here at St John's Park and continue to operate services at our repatriation site over the 20-year time frame.
In a Tasmanian first that's been long awaited, a facility dedicated to treating eating disorders will be established.
We expect completion of that in and around 2025, and we're also now actively recruiting.
Meanwhile, the opposition was out spruiking its way forward for the system, putting nurses at the forefront of a $14 million a year investment.
This is an investment in 131 new nursing positions, including 90 nurse practitioners. Nurse practitioners perform important jobs right across Tasmania, but we don't have enough of them.
Labor has criticised the Liberals on a lack of immediacy in addressing the crisis, while standing firm on its right priorities plan.
It's a good plan and we stand by it, and in government we look forward to implementing it.
Whether they'll get the chance to do so remains to be seen. Grace Evans, 7 Tasmania News.
10 years on from being dismissed for their daring business venture, a Tasmanian duo is receiving national interest from potential investors. Hydrowood is giving ethically sourced timber a second chance at life and using crowdfunding as a means to do it.
Reaching down into murky depths to salvage timber submerged during hydroelectric schemes in the 60s and 70s.
When the dams were created, a dam went in one end of the valley, the water levels came up, the trees died, and they're staying there. So it's literally an underwater forest.
Founded in 2012, Hydrowood has spent a decade in the research and development phase. Feasibility studies revealing more than 60,000 cubic metres of wood lies within Lake Pyman, from Tasmanian oak to Huon pine.
We've built equipment that environmentally friendlily takes out the timber, and we produce boards, and it goes into the market, into high-end applications like for architecture, commercial builds and for furniture.
The business filling a major gap in supply and coinciding with Victoria's termination of native logging.
This isn't a replacement for native forest, but it's a resource that can be used to supplement other forestry activities.
But crowdfunding is necessary for the company's success.
They need to store the timber for 12 to 18 months for it to dry out. So think of it like, if you're making whiskey, it's effectively it takes a long lead time before you can actually sell the end product. And so they need capital and working capital to get the business rolling.
Around 100 people will be attending an event tonight, giving locals the first chance to invest before the door opens to interstate parties.
Once they do raise this capital and get their working capital in the system, they probably won't need to raise again. So this will be the only opportunity to become part of the Hydrowood story.
Hydrowood hoping to raise between $2 and $5 million. Brianna Boylan, 7 Tasmania News.
In developing news, residents from Picton to Judbury are being asked to prepare now for possible flooding, with a major alert issued for the Huon River. The Bureau expects flooding to exceed the May 2020 levels at Tahoon Bridge. Residents from Judbury to Huonville are asked to stay informed to updates. Murph will have the full weather forecast later. A unique sport will take over the lawns of the Inverest Precinct this weekend, with the very first Gumboot Gala being held in front of the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery. Taking inspiration from the swamps of Invermay, eager competitors will stomp into the world of gumboot throwing.
It will be incredibly well supported. I mean, it's the inaugural gumboot throwing competition. I encourage everybody to come along and have a go.
Those up for the challenge will have the chance to swing their way into the artistic prize pool.
The medals for the throwing are designer medals made by the artist here at the studio, so worth winning.
Organisers are busy putting the final touches on the colourful display, with a jam-packed schedule lined up for Saturday, featuring everything from fashion parades to free tram rides. An award-winning artist is bringing the creative imaginations of the university's theatre and music students to life. Davina Wright is directing Parsol, a unique performance based on the cohort's personal experiences of belonging and place. For the students, it's a chance to connect with other creators on a similar path.
I haven't had this really collaborative experience like this before, working with the musicians and the rest of the cast in a completely different way than I have when I've been involved in other productions.
The relationships that I formed at university gave me the real foundation for my career. At a point where I wouldn't be getting work from other people, I was making work with other makers.
The performance will make its debut tomorrow night at the Hedberg. And there's been a baffling sight for passengers passing through Launceston Airport this evening. Multiple agencies taking over the tarmac for an emergency response drill, ready for when disaster strikes.
A terrorist threat evacuating the tarmac, halting airport operations. A specialist team on high alert, racing against the clock to secure the area, ready to swoop into action.
It just prepares everyone for the worst case scenario.
Today's threat, no cause for alarm though, instead a mock disaster to ready the response if things go wrong. Launceston Airport, Tasmania Police and Airfield Firefighting and Rescue or working as one united front.
And these types of exercises provide us with a real opportunity to both test our staff, our processes, our procedures, as well as our facilities to make sure that we're ready when and if a real event occurs.
Those relationships are essential. When we do have an emergency, we know who to reach out to and where to go.
The first responders taking advantage of the controlled chaos to put their skills to the test, using the latest technology to give them all the vantage points, helping to minimise any future threat.
We're hoping there will be mistakes tonight and there'll be some errors made and we can improve on those for the real thing.
The multi-hour operation planned to minimise disruption to any flights, although it did add an element of surprise for those taking off, catching a glimpse of the action unfolding on the tarmac. Victoria Easto, 7 Tasmania News.
A massive weekend of basketball is set to play out across the state this weekend as all 4 Tasmanian NBL 1 sides face double headers in the competition. The Frankston Blues and the Ringwood Hawks will head down south to take on the local sides, with the Hobart Chargers men's squad preparing for a tough contest.
Richards for 3, yes. The competition has certainly gone up a notch, so we're going to have to play really well to win games, and Frankston will be another tough test on Friday.
Meanwhile, in the north, the Launceston Tornadoes will have their work cut out for them as they look to lock in defensively.
Defence is one of those things where it's effort-based, so hopefully we don't have to make too many changes to our game plan. It's just being aware and making sure we're really stopping their shooters.
All the action kicks off with the women's matches with a 6 o'clock tip-off on Friday at both the Thunder Stadium and the Hobart Sports Centre. And finally, a familiar face will return to this year's Launceston Running Festival. Olympic marathon runner Ellie Pashley will return after claiming the 10-kilometre crown in 2021. This time around, the 34-year-old has her eyes set on the half marathon, entering that field for the first time. She'll have a tough challenge ahead, with 2021 winner and Launceston local Millie Clark also lining up again. The festival is being held on June 11.
Good evening. Hobart 19 degrees today, Launceston 17, Burnie and Devonport 16, while Campania and Bushy Park recorded 20 to sit on top of the table. Friendly Beaches 19, St Helens and Grove 18, Smithton and the Islands 17, Lowhead 16 and Strawn 15 degrees. But the cold front did come through. Low-level cloud covered most of the state today in that very strong westerly airstream. The central coast on the east side of the island missed out on most of that cloud. More clouders over much of South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales. A little more over southern WA as well. Tomorrow, the cold front well off to the east and other tracks over Western Australia with a trough and low for company. The winds west to southwesterly up to 40 knots, easing to 35 knots over all waters bar the south. Inland winds to 30 knots as well, with swells to over 7 metres in western and southern waters. We do have a severe weather warning for damaging winds for the northeast and Furneaux Islands, a gale warning for all coastal waters apart from the upper east coast where there's a strong wind warning, and also a strong wind warning for the southwest lakes. A major flood warning on now for the Huon River and a flood warning for the Picton River. A warning to sheep graziers in the southeast and upper Derwent Valley. A bushwalkers alert for the western and central plateau. A bit going on weather-wise. What's happening for Hobart? Just 13 tomorrow. A windy day with a shower or two. 11 the top for Cygnet. Showers easing from New Norfolk, 13 degrees. Plenty of rain overnight, I expect. 13 for Launceston and partly cloudy tomorrow. Devonport the same, and 12 the top for Campbelltown. Burnie expecting 12 degrees and a possible shower. Showers with winds easing over the west, Strawn 12 and Smithton 13 degrees. And for St Helens, partly cloudy and 14. 14 for Swansea, Fingal partly cloudy as well, 12 the maximum. On Friday, a cool start but mostly fine apart from the west of the state. A shower or two for Hobart and Strawn on Saturday, and on Sunday, fine and partly cloudy weather right over Tasmania. A possible shower in Perth tomorrow along with Adelaide and Melbourne, fine and partly cloudy for all the other capitals. Cloudy in Hobart, 13 at the moment. It's been raining in Launceston, 14 and currently 14 in Devonport. And right now over the Adelaide Oval, they're getting ready for State of Origin number 1, Kim. It's currently 15 degrees, very strong gusty winds there. And I know you're with me when I say go the Blues.
Let's just see if you're chirpy tomorrow night. Thank you, Murph.